Nick leaves Inez, goes with Izzy. We find out that Izzy leaves Nick for Bartice. So Nick ends up having to go home too. And it's just like, what the hell is going on? What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's your girl Jada here, back with another video. And as promised per another video, I mentioned that I was finally going to be talking about The Perfect Match over on Netflix. That is their newest reality TV show that everyone's been talking about as of late. And there's a lot of underlying topics that I also want to discuss as well that people have been specifically pinpointing, and I don't want to glaze over that either. But I'm gonna try my best to save it until the end. But you might hear little bits of it, like bits and bobs and pieces throughout. But let's hop right into it. So The Perfect Match actually premiered on the 14th, which, as you guys already know, is Valentine's Day. So it's supposed to be kind of like, you know, about love and finding their perfect match. And they bring all these individuals from these other Netflix reality shows, such as The Circle, The Mole, Too Hot to Handle, Love is Blind. And speaking of Love is Blind, there was actually Nick Lachey. He was actually the one that was hosting it. He brings in all of these hopefuls, and they kind of start with a few individuals that introduce themselves. They talk about what show they're from and mix and mingle. So I'm just going to mention the OGs first. And that's kind of what we're starting with these shows, because you have people that's connecting with people and leaving. There's a lot of coming and going. So I want to make sure we're not confused here. So the OGs, people that start off from the beginning, include Francesca from the Too Hot to Handle season 1. And she was also on Love is Blind after the Altar season 1, because she was dipping and dabbling with Damien. She tried to make it seem like they was just friends, but I was like, girl, you're not just friends. Cut it out. You know, but moving on. Next, we have Joey. He was from The Circle season 1. Then you have Nick, who was from The Circle season 3. Inez, I think is how you say her name, Inez. She was from The Circle France. And Sophie, who was from Selling Tampa. I actually talked about Selling Tampa. That ended up getting canceled. They got the boots after just one season. Personally, I think they should have given them at least one more season, you know, just to kind of see what happens. And then they could kind of give them the boot if it doesn't work out after season 2. But I think that when networks just kind of cut the cord after just one season, it's like, it's a little too soon. You know what I mean? Just in my opinion. Shane from Love is Blind season 2. A lot to say there, but I'm gonna leave that for a little later in the conversation. Dom, he was from The Mole. Zay, who was from The Ultimatum. Carousel, who was from Sexy Beast season 1. That's one show I couldn't really get into, to be honest though. It was just so weird to me. I understood the premise, you know, because you can't see them, but it just seemed kind of dumb, in my opinion. Just in my opinion. Like, I'm gonna leave that one alone. Savannah, she was from The Circle season 2. So the premise of the show is obviously for you to find your perfect match. And in order for you to find your perfect match, you have to date around and you have to see what's gonna happen. Like, do you gel well? That type of thing, right? At the end of, I think, every couple of nights after they have their challenges and whatnot, they're actually supposed to pick a person that's supposed to be their match for the night. Then whoever doesn't find a match has to end up leaving the house that same night. So right out the gate, we had Francesca and Dom. And then we had Joey and Carousel. We actually found out that they had kind of a little bit of history before. So I thought that was pretty interesting, because it didn't sound like it was too good of history. They sound like they was just sleeping partners, if you catch my drift, you know? Inez and what was the guy's name again? Shane from Love is Blind. She kind of, Inez anyway, she kind of just came onto the show, talked to him and was like, hey, I'm gonna shoot my shot type of way. It was really just a matter of her kind of liking him from the jump. So he didn't really seem interested, but she did. So that's kind of why they matched, just to kind of stay into the house. But we find out that a lot of these couples really didn't have much in common with each other. They would just kind of match with each other just so they could avoid leaving the house. So it was more of like a strategy to them rather than actually trying to play the game to get to know people to match with them on a serious note. I was like, okay, I guess you could do that, but what's the point if you can't find anyone romantically, you know? But anyway, Anne-Sophie had met with Zay really because he was kind of the last one available. It just seemed like everyone just kind of matched up before she really got a chance to talk to anyone. So I kind of felt bad for her on that front. And I have some things specifically to say about her and also another individual from Selling Tampa that comes in, and yeah, and also another person that comes in from Love is Blind actually later on. But I had specific things to say about her experience on the show, but I'm gonna save it till the end. Like I said, the last couple, who was Savannah and Nick. So they were both, I think, from the circle. So, you know, they had something kind of in common. But it seemed like Savannah really was just trying to stay there. Like I said, a lot of these couples are just matching just to match, you know, for the sake of it. But they didn't actually have any compatibility with each other. So Savannah just saw Nick as the opportunity to be like, okay, I'm gonna stay in the house, but nothing was actually happening there. I'm just gonna go into now the next part of like the premise of the show. So besides them picking matches, they were given the choice to either bring someone in for themselves, you know, for them to date. If they feel as though the person that they match with or won the challenge with isn't really their, like, you know, match, then they have the opportunity to bring somebody in that they can go on a date with, and then also they could bring someone in to date someone else in the house. So that definitely got really interesting. The first person they brought in was actually Chase from Too Hot to Handle season 2. I remember his season. He definitely struck me as somebody who's very into himself, like nobody else really matters. But before he went on to either of these shows, it sounds like he was in a long-term relationship for a couple of years, and then he just decided to, after that, end it, or maybe she ended it, I don't know. But either way, that ended up coming back to haunt him a little bit later in the show. So Chase comes in, and I think they brought in Calvin from The Circle season 3. I'm gonna talk about Chase first. So Chase ended up matching with Anne-Sophie, mainly just because Anne-Sophie decided to take a chance on him. Everybody else was kind of sticking with their matches, so he was kind of left in the dust, really, in terms of being able to actually match with anybody else.
The very first time I met Chase, I pretty much didn't pay him any dust. I was minding my business. He came and found me. And our first interaction was actually me letting him know that, you know, you're not my type, and I know I'm not your type. That being said, he went on to explain to me that, you know, don't believe everything you saw on Too Hot to Handle, blah, blah, blah. And even beyond that, we had some good conversation, but baby, I am no fool. However, all of that kind of changed once I had a chat with Savannah. What you don't see on camera is that Savannah and Zay kind of like built a connection because they kind of like got to know each other while we were in the house. And Savannah lets me know that Zay asked her to match. I had actually intended to match with Zay, but because I just didn't have a connection with Calvin, and it's just, I kind of knew that, you know, it was not gonna grow. Once I learned that your boy had asked Savannah to match, I just refused to be someone's second option. So that is the reason why I match with Chase instead. Also, what you don't see on camera, actually I spoke and had conversations with all the guys, but at the end of the day, it boils down to who actually wanted or was interested in getting to know you further.
She's such a pretty woman, and it's just kind of like, really? Chase, honestly, him and a couple other people I'm going to go into, they are kind of like D-bags in my opinion. Chase, I think, is just very much so self-centered in the way that he goes about doing certain things, but he ends up showing his behind after Anne-Sophie decides to match with him and not with Zay. So Zay ends up leaving the house. Calvin, I think, went on a date with Anne-Sophie, but Anne-Sophie still ended up choosing Chase. So Calvin and Zay end up going home at the end of the night. After this, I think that's when they bring in Georgia. So when Georgia comes in, Chase is losing his dang mind. He's just like, oh yeah. And this is shortly after him and Anne-Sophie won a challenge together. So they, in the boardroom is what they call it, they get a chance to choose, obviously, like I said, who they would bring into the house and if they wanted to date anybody themselves. So of course, Chase decides to go with Georgia, and Sophie was just kind of like, well, okay then, you know? Like I said, Chase just reminds me of a very self-centered person. I think that's just what he is. He can't really help it. And he didn't strike me as a person that was really into black girls. I'm just gonna be honest. He struck me as a person that strictly dated white women, and Sophie did not strike me as his type at all. He just did that as an alliance to stay into the house. That's all. I really don't think he was into Aunt Sophie at any point, but they did end up having like some type of kissing challenge, and then they had to rate each other's kisses. So that was hella awkward, but we end up seeing a shakeup after that of some people not really seeing their match as being really their match. Francesca and Dom, oh, he was a little too emotional for me, I'm not gonna lie. Every 2 seconds that man was crying about something. I was like, my guy, I'm gonna need you to not wear your heart so heavily on your sleeve. It just seemed like he just needed to just stand up, you know what I mean?
Y'all be weak in the knees. Stand up! Stand up!
It just seemed like he was just way too sensitive for this show. I'm like, it is not that serious. Y'all been knowing each other for maybe a total of maybe a week at this point, like, and you crying? So that was definitely not a good sign, in my opinion. Dom, I felt, just came across as very weak. Okay, not in a physical sense, but just in a mental sense. Like, it was just too soft for me. I definitely did not find him attractive after that. And on top of that, he had his nails painted, and I don't like that. That sets me off. I don't like it. You like what you like. If you guys like guys with nails painted, you know, do you. But I could tell you I didn't like that. I was like, ooh. It's a little too feminine for my taste, but, you know, go ahead. So Francesca, after that kissing thing, she didn't really feel a spark with Dom. So since that challenge, she was just kind of like iffy about it. Georgia comes in. Izzy comes in as well. And it looks like Izzy was interested in Nick, I think, but Nick was trying to figure out if there was really something between him and Savannah, but Savannah was really just trying to play the game, and it was just kind of like, what is the point of doing that? That's not really the whole reason that you're here, you know? So people like that usually end up getting booted out the house anyway, because you realize that they're just there for selfish reasons, you know? Shortly after that, I think they bring in Bartise. And Bartise is another one from Love is Blind, where I was just kind of like, y'all couldn't pick anybody else. Only 2 of them ended up getting married from season 3, so it was just like, there was so many other singles for them to choose from, but y'all choose Bartise. Really? But he seems like a too hot to handle, perfect match reality show type of guy, so I understand why they picked him. But it was like, ugh, here we go again. You really get to see Bartise for who he is in this show. I think in Love is Blind, because they had to focus on 5 different couples at once, you didn't really see him as much. But when Bartise comes in and he goes on a date with Inez, it looks as though him and Inez were kind of kicking it off, but at the same time you could tell he wasn't her type and she wasn't his type. So it was a good date nonetheless. I was kind of feeling, well, starting to feel bad for Inez, I'm not gonna lie. With Inez, her personality was very, very similar to mine. Very cheeky, fun, but a little bit more on the reserved type of side. You know what I mean? Like, not really outgoing, but she'll talk to you if you're there type of way, but she wouldn't really be boisterous about it. And then on top of that, she doesn't like stepping on anybody's toes. Throughout the entire season, this girl kept getting left in the dust by guys, and women in the house, you could tell they were just going after what they wanted. But with Inez, she just kept thinking about other people's feelings, and it was like, girl, this is why you don't have nobody right now. She matched with Shane, that didn't work out. She matched with Nick, that didn't work out. Nick turned around. You know, I think this was around the time that Izzy came in. Nick turned around after literally 1 night of matching with Inez and was like, yeah, I don't see us going anywhere. I don't feel that spark, and I feel like we shouldn't force anything. I was like, Nick, shut up. You're full of it. You're full of it. Honestly, she ended up matching and unmatching with people so fast, couldn't even blink in time. And I just felt really bad for her because she was just trying so hard to be nice And it's not that type of show. My back keeps itching. Ugh. It's a first come, first serve type of ordeal. Very cutthroat. So either you go after what you want or you get sent home. That's what it is. You can't move too slow in these things. Nick leaves Inez, goes with Izzy. And then we find out that Izzy leaves Nick for Bartice. So Nick ends up having to go home too. And it's just like, what the hell is going on? And then Bartice, I think, ends up leaving Izzy for Inez. And it was like, what is happening? Inez and Bartice end up matching because I think at one point she had a thing for Dom, but I think she was trying to put it off as he's just a cool dude, I just want to be friends, because he was with Francesca. But Francesca had ended up leaving Dom for somebody else. I think, did Damien come in around this time? I didn't get to mention anybody's shows. Georgia is from Too Hot to Handle season 3. Izzy is from Too Hot to Handle, also season 3. Damien, obviously you guys know, Love is Blind season 1. Bartice, Love is Blind season 3. Inez was about to leave because Dom, I think, yeah, that's when Damien came in. So Damien came into the house. Francesca decided to match with him. He took it personal, started crying. He was like, I'm gonna leave. You do have the option to just leave the house if you don't want to match up with anybody else. But I think that was just kind of silly, you know? It's like, at least play the field and see what happens. And then if you don't get matched, go home, you know? He was dead set on Francesca, and he even said, I loved you to the girl. And she was like, don't say that. And I was like, yeah, don't say that, Dom. Like, you know you don't love this chick. It's just unattractive when you come across as a guy and a girl as too clingy and too emotionally attached to someone after such a short period of time. It's just a turn off in my mind. Obviously, after a while, if we've been together for a good minute, I would expect that attachment. But if you saying I love you after 2 weeks, that's scary to me. Like, I would not, cut it off. Cut it off. Dom was about to leave the house. He was telling everybody bye, and Inez was trying to talk to him, trying to say like, don't leave, don't leave. But then she was also saying that she was going to leave because she didn't have a match either at the time. And Dom, I think, was about to leave. Actually, no, wait. I'm trying to remember what came first. Bartice, because I remember she was talking to Dom, trying to get him to not leave. And then Bartice, I think this is right after their date together. He couldn't get to talk to her at all that night, so he ended up talking to Izzy, I think. And that's when Izzy left Nick. Inez was left to pick somebody else, but I can't remember who it was. Either way, there's gonna be some mix-ups. I'm sorry, it's bound to happen. But at some point, Inez was trying to talk Dom out of leaving. And that's when Georgia swooped in, because Georgia had left Chase alone because she realized Chase was low-key a liar, if we're gonna be honest. Even though I think he was kind of telling the truth about breaking up with his girlfriend before that, I still think there was something still red flaggy about Chase. Honestly, I feel like with Chase, he just saw how good Georgia was looking, and it was based on physical attraction and that alone. It wasn't about anything deeper for him. And Georgia figured that out, and that's when she spotted Dom about to leave, and she was like, okay, let's chat, we could match up, that type of way. After that, I believe Bartice ended up matching with Inez. Even though I don't remember everybody she matched with, none of them were successful. That's the whole point of the story, okay? Bartice, he ends up leaving, I think, because Inez didn't match with him and he didn't have any other match. However, what gets me about Bartice is that he kept saying to these girls that he matched with that he feels something for them. And it was like, Bartice, why are we lying? Why are you lying? You know you don't feel no emotional connection to these women. And then shortly after that, I think Colony and I think Chloe came in as well.
I'm a bold bitch, so I don't really like anybody here. I'm gonna continue to fucking drink, cause yikes. Make it make sense.
So Colony went on a date with Dom, but this was after he was with Georgia. So he kind of told Colony straight up like, hey, I'm not really interested in pursuing anything. This is just because I kind of have to be on a date with you type of way, you know? So he was very upfront about that. But personally, I don't think their personalities would have gelled. He definitely wasn't her type again, and she wasn't his. So it wasn't gonna work anyway. I think Anne-Sophie, she ended up having to leave the house with Izzy, I think. They ended up leaving, and that's how that ended for her because Chase didn't match with her. Fast forward to Colony, I think again, kind of like Anne-Sophie, she didn't really get a fair shake. And I think by that time that she came in, it was kind of very cliquey. Everybody was kind of already in couples. So it was very difficult for her, I feel, to get to know anybody. I think she was talking to Bartise a little bit after she came into the house, but he had told her his age and he automatically got discounted in her mind because she was like, you're a baby. Also, when it came to Shane, ended up getting kind of tossed around here and there because I think him and Inez didn't work out. I think he ended up matching with Izzy for a time just so that Izzy could stay in the house, really, because Izzy was more so interested in Nick at the time, but then Nick kind of felt that he should keep Inez for a time, but he didn't really, because like I said, they was only together for like a night. When it came to Shane, he was trying to figure out what to do because, like I said, Izzy was more into Nick, but Nick and Izzy made out with each other. Shane went off on a tangent. He was like, why would you do that in front of me? So clearly there was something deeper for Shane than there was for Izzy. Shortly after that, Chloe ends up coming in, and that's basically Shane's kindred spirit. She was from the Circle season 2 and also Too Hot to Handle season 1. So honestly, when I say they were kindred spirits, like that does not even begin to really fully explain how much these two people were alike, and annoyingly so. I don't like to call people idiots, but they do kind of come across as a little dumb. I'm just going to be honest, not the brightest bulb on the tree. When it comes to personality types and the things that they enjoy doing and they like having fun, it seems like they were good. But then Chloe's ex comes in, Mitchell from the Circle season 2. He comes in, and they had only been, I think, together for 8 months before they decided to end the relationship. But clearly when they had that little sip and paint, y'all, things got real spicy. She ends up making out with this dude. I'm like, how do you go from gelling so well with one person to just making out with your ex? So Shane acting all crazy about that situation does not surprise me because I would have acted that way too. But then eventually, you know, she had to make a decision, like, do I want to stay with Mitchell or Shane? And she chooses Mitchell because she feels as though if I don't pursue whatever it is that's possibly there with Mitchell, then, you know, I might regret it. She ends up matching with Mitchell. Shane ends up leaving, but not before he gets splashed. That was just really unfortunate. So Bartise, I think this was when Inez met up with Will for a date. So she ended up matching with Will for that night. And then Bartise and Shane had to end up leaving. So Shane was sitting underneath, I think, where Mitchell and Chloe's room was. So the water ended up splashing from their rooftop pool onto Shane down below, and he took that really personal because they were also laughing while they did it. He took that real tough. They both ended up leaving, and I was not surprised, honestly, with Bartise because, again, he kept saying that he felt connections, but it wasn't really there. And the conversation that he had with Inez before Inez decided to match with Will was also very pompous. Very much so, I am the center of everything and everything is about me, yada yada. Kind of like Chase with Bartise. He said something to the effect of, oh, I picked you up and this is how you repay me. I dusted you off, that type of way. And Inez was like, what are you talking about? And he was like, well, you were about to leave. You remember that? I gave you a chance. And she was like, what the hell? Like, you didn't have to do that. I wanted to leave on my own accord. She was about to leave by choice. I'm just kind of like, really? Did you really just say that? Like, you dusted her off and gave her a chance. You picked her up, basically. It was like, wow. It really came across as, I struggle with a savior complex, really. So I knew with Inez, she was definitely happy to get rid of him, honestly. But then she ended up running into another issue with William. They won a challenge, and then they end up going to the boardroom. Everything was going good until that boardroom, y'all. Honestly, Will, he showed his behind because Inez was trying to match people up based on who she thought would click and yada yada, right? Like who would be a good fit with each other. And Will's just like, I just want to make it where I could stay in this house. I could care less who wants to match with who. I'm not here to make friends. He was on that type of time. So Inez did not care for that. So ever since that, she just kind of cut William off and was already trying to look at other people as potential matches. So William, you know, he was off on his own, and that's when they bring in Abby from 20 somethings Austin. So I hadn't even heard about this show until this show. When they brought her on, I was like, what is 20 somethings? So I would probably need to check that out also if it's worth watching. Y'all let me know in the comments if you've seen it. And then they also bring in Diamond from Love is Blind season 1. And if y'all remember, season 1 was a hot mess, specifically for Diamond, because she ended up getting a bomb dropped on her with regards to the guy that she was going to be marrying. Now, she found out that he was bisexual, but he didn't let her know this. So she was trying to basically compute what he said, and he just did not take that well. So they end up in an argument. The ring ends up at the bottom of the pool, honey. But she doesn't get married to him, and you know, they ended up reconciling as like friends, but she's still obviously looking for love. So I think Diamond, she went on a date with somebody before, and that didn't work out. So she ended up matching with Will just to stay in the house, really. But Will kind of knew that he wasn't really into her. So eventually they sent her out on a date with Bartise. She realized, yeah, I don't really care for you like that, really. I didn't really get the sensations, you know? And they also bring in Lauren, aka LC, from Love is Blind season 1 and also the After the Altar episode. So she did actually date Barnett from that season, but he ended up proposing to Amber and they got married. So that's where she comes in. She was in that little love triangle. But it brought in everybody that left the house for a time to see if there were any more potential matches. So Nick ends up matching with LC, and then Diamond, I think she ends up leaving because she didn't have a match after Bartise and all that. Then we have Abby. Abby ended up leaving because she was actually matched with Bartise for a time. She came in, she actually went on a date with Francesca. They hit it off, and that's when Damien was just kind of like, and he matched with Inez for a time. But Inez kind of knew that it was not really a matter of a love connection. He was still hung up on Francesca, but Francesca was too busy dealing with Abby because she's bisexual, and also Abby's bisexual as well. So that didn't really work out. I think it was because Abby felt a ways about Francesca making out with Carousel. Carousel is also bisexual, so they made out by the pool randomly. And when Abby came to talk to Francesca about it, all Francesca said was, oh, we do that. We do that sometimes. And I'm like, what? Girl, okay. You know, it just, red flag, just walk away. So I was happy when Abby just disappeared. She was like, let me just remove myself from this, because Francesca really, people were trying so hard to avoid saying it, but she was a 304. She was a whole 304. Okay, she was for the streets. Abby moves on to Bartise for a little while, but Bartise ends up rekindling things with Izzy, because remember, Izzy had left Nick in the dust for Bartise, and then Bartise ended up leaving Izzy in the dust for Inez. So it was like, what the hell is going on? Abby and Bartise kind of call it quits because, like I said, Bartise was interested in Izzy. I think he had already matched up with her before that conversation. Abby was just kind of like, okay, I thought we were gonna match with each other, you know, like basically trying to ask him what changed, like what happened. And he's just like, you're so caught up in how things look. I think he was referring back to the time that they were in bed together and she didn't want to like kiss him or do nothing like flirty because the camera was obviously in the room. So it was just kind of like, no. She clearly felt uncomfortable. So he puts that back in her face. And I didn't like that. Again, it was just kind of like, Bartise, do you not learn that you're a complete a-hole? You know, it's like he doesn't really care. That's the part that gets me. And she kind of took that really personal. She was like, wow, you're using what I said to you in confidence to attack me? He went on like a tangent basically saying how she's not really like confident, like comfortable with herself, and he's not really into how things look. And yeah, so she was just like, you know what, I'm gonna dismiss myself. So she ends up leaving. We also see that Damien and Francesca, they weren't working out either. Francesca, it seems like there wasn't really much going on. There wasn't really any red flags. However, until like leading up to when they did the little questionnaire about each other for a challenge, you clearly could see, yeah, there was some things that Damien didn't really like the whole open marriage thing. Francesca wanted an open marriage, I believe, but Damien didn't. And all the guys in the house was like, how could you be okay with that? If you don't want that, I don't see that working out with you two. Eventually though, they do end up kind of dissolving things and they end up leaving the house. In terms of the couples though that ended up being left, it was actually LC and Nick, Dom and Georgia, Artis and Izzy, Joey and Carousel. I think that was everybody. Oh no, Chloe and Shane. Chloe and Shane ended up patching it up. They had their little rift for a minute because Shane couldn't accept the fact that Chloe brought him back after doing what she did with Mitchell, kind of leaving Shane in the dust for Mitchell. And it was like, how could you leave me for your ex? Like, there was a reason that he's your ex, you know what I mean? And then of course, Chloe eventually finds out with Mitchell that he wasn't really planning on doing anything with her, like just her. He wanted to get to know everybody, you know? He was like, you know what? I made a mistake. Let me bring Shane back. And Shane was cool with it for a time. She ended up, of course, sharing the fact that she was falling in love with Shane and all that. And Shane kind of pulled her aside and was like, that's nice and all, but you still chose him over me. You know what I mean? I could kind of understand why you would still be kind of spicy about that. I would be too, because it's like, I'm basically your option B. She kept saying, I shouldn't be made to feel like the crappy person. She said something else, but I don't want to say that word. It's like, I don't want to be made out to be the crappy person in this situation. Like, I'm done feeling crappy. And it was just kind of like, I mean, that just happened a couple days ago though, Chloe. Like, we keep forgetting the time span of these show episodes. But anyways, so Shane was about to actually leave the house. He kind of blew up for a bit, but the next day they worked it out. And, you know, Chloe was still kind of side-eyeing him a little bit, but it seems as though she had forgiven him for being kind of childish. But Shane in Love is Blind season 2, he definitely had that same approach to a lot of the arguments that he had with Natalie in that show. I don't know if y'all remember, but it was very, very childish. And he would say things sometimes that I'll be like, that was dumb. Why would you say that? You know what I mean? It's just to start an argument, it seems. The way he would approach certain things and conflict within relationships, it was very much so from a juvenile perspective. So I think that's kind of why he had a lot of issues, really. So for the final episode, they end up going on dates. Everybody, all the couples go on dates. So before Nick Lachey came out and said who the perfect match couple was, everybody had kind of like a round table discussion about what everybody thought about the couples. We also found out that Joey had proposed to Carousel. I forgot to squeeze that in there. It did seem like Joey was wavering a little bit at some points in their relationship, and I was just kind of like, do you actually foresee yourself in a long-term relationship with her, or are you playing with her, you know? So I don't know if they're still together, if they're still engaged, or if they're about to get married, because, you know, this was filmed way in advance of it actually premiering on Netflix. So I don't know where they are now, okay? Y'all can tell me in the comments. People had some things to say. Of course, when it came to Dom and Georgia, let's just say Chase definitely had some choice words. Georgia and Chase had dated for a little while, but like I said, that didn't work out. He'd actually given her a rock as basically a proposal to say, you can trust me. And I was like, a rock, Chase? Really? Chase definitely said some things along the line of, I don't think your relationship is gonna last. It seems fake to me. But in terms of all the other couples though, it seems like everybody was, you know, saying positive things about them. But I think, you know, when it came to Izzy and Bartise, they outrightly said, because we just got together, just matched, you know, it's not really like a sure thing. They are from two different sides of the world. Izzy is from the UK and Bartise is from Dallas in the US. So they would have to work out a long distance relationship. And I honestly don't think they have what it takes for that, because that takes a lot out of you. LC and Nick, they didn't seem to really have much in common. However, Nick did say that he wanted to kind of get to know her. So I don't know if he continued to try and get to know her, but they were only really matched for the same amount of time as Bartise and Izzy. So they said the same thing. Chloe and Shane, Chloe outrightly said, like, we just have a few things that we need to work out. Like, communication would definitely be one of those. We end up finding out that the perfect match after everybody voted was actually Dom and Georgia. So congratulations to them. I'm not sure what the prize was. I don't think it was ever even said or mentioned. If it was and I missed it, let me know. But yeah, I'm not even sure what they won. But you know, good on them. They stuck it out. I have to be honest, a lot of this was all over the place. Oh, one other thing that I wanted to mention, well, two things actually. One being Savannah. What was funny with Savannah is that obviously, like I said, her and Nick was just trying to stay together as like an alliance type of thing. She had to end up leaving. But either way, before that happened, she went over to talk to Dom at one point. And ooh, Francesca did not like that. She was like, oh, are you trying to compete with me? Before this, her and Francesca didn't have no beef. They didn't have no issues. But since that moment, Francesca had labeled her a snake. She went over to Savannah to talk about the situation. But the entire time, Francesca keeps telling Savannah, like, we're not in a relationship. We're not in a relationship. So Savannah was like, I mean, you just said you're not into anything serious with him. So I can't talk to him. It just seemed like a very territorial thing. So rightfully so, Savannah was like, I mean, I'm gonna talk to whoever I want to as long as they're not in a relationship, you know? So Francesca just storms off and Savannah's just like, you got problems, really. And I'm like, I agree. If you ain't in a relationship, why do you care? So it definitely was just a very territorial thing for her, for Francesca, really. I don't think it was a matter of I feel things for Dom, really. Because she ended up dropping Dom as soon as Damien came in the house. So that says exactly what I was thinking. What I find funny is that when everybody comes back in the house, she goes over to talk to Damien. This is before Francesca and Damien decided to call it quits. Before she even went over to talk to Damien, Francesca looks over at Damien and is just like, if you even utter a word to this girl, like, we are done, basically. It's giving, I feel threatened. Francesca definitely just struck me as the mean it girl of the house. She was like, it's my way or the highway, that type of situation. One last thing I want to discuss before I wrap up this video was the whole black girl tokenism conversation, because that came up quite a few times in the reviews that I saw of this show so far, and I kind of have to agree. I feel like a lot of these shows, they get men contestants that they know good and well aren't really interested in pursuing anything romantically with black women, and they would still just kind of sprinkle black women here and there just to kind of meet a quota. And that's why I say when it comes to the whole representation thing, that's a whole thing in itself. But to say it in short, check out that video that I did. Hopefully I could link it maybe in the description or here, I don't know. But it was about the whole Little Mermaid movie that's coming out shortly with Halle Bailey. I have to be, you know, kind of honest. When it comes to representation, I feel like when you're pushing so hard for it and you're not really recognizing the type of representation that you're trying to throw these black actors and actresses and also these women, for example, in these reality shows, you're forgetting how that plays with your psyche. If you're constantly seeing men not want the black women that are on these shows, what does it say to the black women that are watching that? You know what I mean? Honestly, if they could have shows that are obviously either all black, or if they're trying to make it where it's something that they could pitch to more than just the black audience, find people that you know good and well, like preference-wise in terms of who they date, just to make it a little more even and more interesting. Find someone or some people, some men that you know good and well are interested in dating black women, because it just seems like tokenism at that point. If you're just throwing like maybe 2 or 3 black women in there just to say you're throwing them in there.
And Sophie, I gotta be honest, watching the show, I felt like you and a lot of the other women of color that came into the game kind of didn't get a chance to really like show everything that you had and get a fair shot at it. And I was wondering like how you felt in the house.
I'm not going to lie. I did have a moment where I kind of like broke down. I'm not sure if it's shown, but there's a moment that I thought to myself like, oh my gosh, I didn't feel seen. And I think that it may be because not everyone in the house, maybe they weren't all open-minded. Maybe they came with previous stigmas of what, I don't know, like dating a black woman might be like. But either way, I did feel like I didn't feel seen. And, you know, it sucks, but, you know, you learn.
It seems very unfair to me. And I think Anne-Sophie, she definitely did wrong. Obviously, because she picked Chase, that was kind of inevitable. But it just seemed like nobody was interested. And also, when it came to Colony, even though she came late in the game, no one really spoke to her like that. She was just kind of off to herself. Like, obviously that could have been like a personality thing, but I ultimately do feel like shows need to do better. It just seems like you're picking these men that clearly only really are interested in white or Asian or, you know, all the other races besides black. But then you're putting these black women really at a disadvantage in these shows. It just seems very much so tokenish. You're just like, oh, okay, let's fill this quota so that they can't say we didn't have black women in this show. You know, I've seen this many times. It's not even just this show, and that's why I felt the need to bring it up. I just feel very annoyed by that. So I felt like bringing it up, but of course we could continue this conversation down in the comments. I just didn't want to ramble on for too long about it. But y'all let me know your thoughts about all of this. Okay, I know it was a lot. It's probably gonna be a lot to edit too. Ugh. Can't wait. But y'all let me know what y'all thought about all this craziness. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.